Okay, hey, it's nice to meet you. So please tell people the plot of your film, Eagles of the Republic, for those who don't know.
Oh yeah, so it's about most celebrated actor in Egypt, George Fahmy. And Egypt, just for people who don't understand, Egypt is sort of the Hollywood of the Arab world. So 1 billion people that speaks Arabic, they look at film and television that is produced in Cairo and in Egypt. And so when you're famous in Egypt, you are really famous. You become like a mega star, essentially. And so the protagonist of this story, he is sort of at the height of his career, and he gets this offer to play the sitting president in a biopic. And he hates the president. He thinks, no, he doesn't hate him because he's a dictator. He hates him because he thinks he's uncharismatic and short. And so he actually first tries to decline, but that's not really something you can do. So as he accepts the role, he gets dragged into a shoot that is controlled by the Egyptian army, and it gets very complicated.
Rice. And talk about that government. Would you say it's somewhat inspired or directly tied to maybe like the Muslim Brotherhood?
No, so what happened was that after the revolution 2011, the Muslim Brotherhood had a short stint at power with actually a democratic elected government that was um, and it was unfortunate that the Muslim Brotherhood won that election because they were running the country into the ground and they were very unpopular. And then uh, the Egyptian army just had enough. So they made a coup. And so today it's a military dictatorship, like in most countries in the region. It's run by the army. And to understand also, the Egyptian army is it's a big, big army. We're talking one of the 10th biggest armies in the world. And it has 30% of the country's economy. So they have companies that produce everything from shoes, agriculture, and film. And so it's a little bit like, I think Trump had that same vision for America to be sort of involved in everything. Uh, he has probably looked at places like China and Russia and Egypt that has that kind of system where, you know, the lines between army, government, entertainment, industry is very blurred.
Interesting. So I guess you must be you're obviously an educated guy and you're taking a lot of information. You're teaching me a lot of things here, and it's really interesting. What was the thing that you kind of how did you gel all those pieces together and sort of dramatize things and start
Oh
getting
yeah,
into a
so
screenplay?
just to explain my background, I'm a film fanatic. I was, I've been directing for 15 years, and from the very get-go, I have always been a genre filmmaker. And so for me, and I'm also old school in that all my favorite films are old films. It's Double Indemnity, Sunset Boulevard, Chinatown, these masterpieces, and they're all genre films, of course. So I always approach my scripts from that point of view. So um, this is inspired by something that happened in Egypt. You know, when the army took over the film industry 5 years ago, they started by making a biopic of the sitting president. And everyone who knows something about Egypt knows that the president is very short and he's bold, but they casted a very tall actor with a lot of hair. And I thought it was hilarious, you know. But then I started to think about it from a genre point of view, and I was like, that's actually a very interesting political thriller to be inside of the film industry. Um, so I'm very strict when it comes to genre, even though my two last films, I've sort of combined two genres, but it's genres that are, how could I say, it's allowed to combine them. So if it starts off as a sort of a dark comedy, it turns into a psychological thriller in the end. And I think that um, those old masterpieces, they did that too. They did that. They sort of make you laugh in the first act, but you don't laugh in the last part of the film.
I really liked the depth of the character, how he starts like he's a jabroni at first, and then you realize that actually he's in a situation that makes him compromise even further. So it's like you can see someone that you dislike, and then you realize you could dislike them more.
Yes. And that's the point, is that I think he is all of us in a way, because, he's a liar, yes. He's a man who cheats, yes. And he's also vain, and, there's a lot of things you could say about George, but he sort of tells the truth when he's lying. And there is something honest about him, in the sense that he is very open with his emotion. So that's why I think, at least I like him. And a lot of the lies telling people, is things that he thinks he protects the people he loves, um, which is, of course, you know, problematic, because a lie is a lie. And I think in the time we live in, when truth is so expensive and so difficult, and when there is a cost to it, you know, I think that, back, when I started writing this script, you know, the world was a place where there's still sort of a sense of, how could I say, especially in the Western world, I think that there was still, the transatlantic link still existed. I think all the illusions are gone now. You know, we are living in a world where we are confronted with, uh, you know, lies every day from the most powerful people in the world, and where people are kissing the ring. And this is a film about a man that is being bent to a point where he breaks. And I would like to say that, you know, I'm better than him, or that but the truth is that when you're put under pressure, when they threaten your children, which is the case in dictatorships, you don't, they know if they can't reach you, they'll go to the people you love. And that's why people don't understand that, when you live in a democracy, when, we still have this sort of very, we feel like, why aren't people protesting or saying no? Well, they'll come to your house and pick up your kids, and then, you become silent. And that's a very dangerous path. And I think it's not that it's not that I have a strong message with this film. That's not my point. I still believe that cinema can exist in its own right, just to sort of take you on a journey with a character. I believe I believe that film is bigger than a political statement. I believe that cinema is actually an act of empathy. Actually, watching a film is an act of empathy, because you are someone else for 2 hours, someone you're not. And you're taking the decisions of the main character during these 2 hours. And so, as a filmmaker, I find it be a even bigger responsibility than if I was trying to convince you of a political idea, to actually say that, okay, I'm going to take you on this journey with this actor. And just one thing, Michael, I'll just say that my biggest sort of fear when I made this film was that, will anyone empathize with an actor? Because here is the truth: we love to watch actors act, but actors are very despised. as as you know, as a profession, because we do not trust them. We don't know if they're acting. So if you look at, for example, the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, you remember, people, are they acting? Are they acting? Or is this real? Is her tears real? Is his bravado real? Or is it just an act? And and that was what I was up against. But then I realized as I was making this film that we're all actors. We're all actors. In our life, we take on a role, as a father, as a husband, as a mother or daughter, or, we all play our parts. And and sometimes uh, we lie when we make those parts. Sometimes we play it well, sometimes not. You know,
I love it. So how long did it take you to write this script?
it always takes me about 1.5 years to write the script, and that's because I love to write scripts. So I actually love the process of writing. So a lot of times, a lot of people would have said, like, "Yeah, come on, man, it's done already after 1 year." But I continue to sort of noodle with it for a long time, and with this script, I it was a record speed to actually get it financed, which was very nice for me. It's a film, it's a very ambitious film, as you've seen. It's but we actually financed it in less than 6 months, and I mean it's a $10 million film. So it was, and in Europe that's a lot of money. So but it was very. Um, I feel very lucky in um, that we were able to get it done so quickly in terms of the financing part. Then, of course, the shoot was. I mean, it was a very difficult shoot. It's a difficult film to make because of the military parade and all that stuff. There's a lot of big set pieces that are.
Yeah, tell me about the logistics of that.
It's crazy. So, like I'm obsessed with. I've always sort of obsessed over military parades. I like military parades. I think it's a very sort of theatrical and cinematical event. So I'm a guy who actually watches I know it's very politically incorrect. I always watch the Chinese parades. They are the best in the world, hands down, you know. And then North Korea and Russia, second place. Russian victory parade is amazing. I mean, in terms, I'm not saying like it's horrible. Of course, they're dictatorships. Egypt is actually really, really good at parades. They're up there, uh, America is useless at parades. They're not good, but the French are pretty good. Anyway, so it's so I started thinking when I had written the script and I knew that a big part was going to take place during a military parade. I was starting to look at films and trying to find out who has done this before. And to my to my horror, I realized that no one has pulled it off well. I started to look and I saw that, oh God, even Hitchcock in Topaz sort of faked it. He used, stock images from real parades. And then I had a memory of that. I loved the parade in Born on the 4th of July, but that's not really a parade. It's not really a parade. So I was like, how am I going to pull this off? And I mean, we shot it in Istanbul because I'm a persona non grata in Egypt. So I had to, I mean, of course, I used military advisors and experts, and we were sort of looking at different, you know but I mean it wasn't easy, let's put it that way, and especially when it sort of devolves. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but when the chaos sort of ensued, it was quite difficult. It was um yeah, I mean, but I'm glad we pulled it off.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. Why do you create cinema? Why do you like cinema?
For me, as a kid growing up, I had a pretty tough childhood, and cinema sort of saved my life, you know. I, you know, I was allowed to travel for 2 hours somewhere else, be someone else, dream someone else's dreams. And so the power of cinema is that you actually can sort of create, you can move the center of the universe basically for 2 hours to a place. And I think that's very powerful. And I believe that, you know, a lot of times, you know, if you're in Ontario or if you're in Stockholm, you think that, oh, the center of the universe is Los Angeles or Washington or New York, but the center of the universe is where you're standing for you, you know? And that's cinema is unique in its art form that it can actually create that you're moved to a place. And I think that it's very powerful to be able to be part of that. And so for me personally, it's such a dream that I get to do this, at this level, because, you know, as my films actually also has an audience in cinema, because for me it's very important with cinema that it's not on television or on someone's phone. That's I know that people are watching this film that way too, but for me the experience, the collective experience of sitting in a cinema together with strangers, getting moved to a different place, living someone else's experience, nothing beats that. Nothing beats that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I encourage people to participate in the theatrical experience as well. But aren't you worried? What do we do?
I'm not worried. Um, and I'll tell you why. Cinema has been declared dead since the birth of television. And look at all the formats that has died and come into sort of the arena saying, I'm going to kill cinema. You have television, you have VHS, you have DVD, you have Blu-ray. I don't think streaming is going to do it either. Because here is the thing, that with these phones, with the TikTok, with the YouTube, with all that, what it creates is sort of the experience is constantly, it takes something from you. It doesn't give you something, it takes away something from you. When you are in a cinema together with strangers, experiencing something together for 2 hours, you forget your life, you forget your problems. When you walk out, you actually gain something, you were given something, you were enriched. And yes, Netflix and these guys are trying to make you forget that. But, then there is the James Camerons of this world. And, I know they just pray that he will die, but, so that so that people don't flock into the cinema. But truly, I believe strongly in the cinema experience. Of course, we as filmmakers have a huge responsibility to make films that are worth getting a babysitter for, and go out of your comfortable house. And, for example, the formats is a big question. Like this film that you saw now, Eagles of the Republic, is shot on 65. And I do that because I believe that, for the big screen, you need to be hypnotized. You cannot shoot it as if it was a television drama. That doesn't work. You have to give people something. You cannot take something from them. You have to give them something.
All right. Well, I hope people hear that message. That's powerful stuff. I was wondering, did making this film inspire you to write something new?
Oh yeah, yeah. I am writing, so I constantly write. And my issue has been, I've directed other people's scripts historically, for example, I'm guilty. I've directed Westworld and Ray Donovan and, these television things that are actually dragging people out of cinemas. And for example, I did an American film called The Contractor with Chris Pine and Ben Foster. It was during COVID, so it was basically very limited cinema release, went to Amazon and Paramount Plus. But, you know, I am I never commit until I'm out of the whole run. This film is being released in France and in Sweden in November, and I think that around January I will decide which script I'll do next. And I am there is something, sometimes, I mean, I think it can be nice to do someone else's script in between, like, and the studios are struggling right now. So, for example, when I read American projects, I always or studio projects. I mean, they're global companies these days, and I always look at it and say, well, is it something that only I could do? That is sort of if someone else could do it, they should probably do it. You know what I mean? So if they say, like, do you want to do Star Wars or Marvel? Someone else can do that. So then I shouldn't do it, you know? But so I try to stay in to do things that only I can do. And there are English speaking films that I believe that only I could do with my perspective, but they're rare. And so uh, I might do something very. It will be a surprise. Let me tell you that. I will now move away from. I'm like, for example, the three last films I've done, they have been about very big political upheaval, and I'm moving into something else.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to finding out what that something else is. And I appreciate your time today. It was a lot of fun
Thank you.
chatting with you. I love the passion too. Um, and it's intelligent. It's not just, bleh. Anyways, what is your final thought to end this interview?
Well, Michael, I think that it's very important. I love that what you do, and it's that this conversation about film and about, opening up the conversation about cinema, because I believe that art is what's going to save us. Ultimately, it's what's going to save us because it is a universal language. There is so much in this world today where leaders are trying to convince us that we have nothing in common to create divide. Whereas film and art does the exact opposite. It actually is a shared experience. And that's what I mean with that film is empathy. It is that I can watch a film about, uh, an Iranian girl who wants to win the championship in karate. And I can identify with that. And I can watch a Canadian film about a man who is being unfaithful and trying to sort of find redemption. You know, it's there is something universal about being specific. And I think that cinema is still the superior art form for that. And I believe that the conversation about film is as important as film itself. So
Okay.
so
Beautiful.
keep up the good work.
I'll try. I'll try to
Yes.
try to keep up with you.
Okay.